Let's talk about the money, the emergency funds that are now going to be released for the KZN flood disaster. There have been concerns, they were raised a few days ago, about how that money is going to be managed, how that money is going to be spent. There are concerns that we could see large amounts of this money vanishing, the same way we did during COVID-19, money intended for one thing goes missing and spent on something else. Never mind the misappropriation and malfeasance. So how do we avoid that happening again? Neeshan Balton, Executive Director at the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, joining us to get some quick reaction from you, Neeshan. Good evening to you. So when we look at what we had last year, public resources during COVID were stolen, emergency procurement processes not followed, prices inflated, and public funds not used prudently. I imagine you're very concerned about 1.8 billion rand going missing.
And I think it's not an unfounded concern. It's not only COVID-19. If you go as far back as the funeral of Madiba, we saw similar kinds of behaviors and tendencies that was basically corruption and crookery at a time when you least expected it. So what this is about is beginning to say, let's learn from the past. Let's ensure that knowing how businesses and some politicians and public servants behaved previously, we need to do this differently. And we need to do it differently, not only to prevent the kind of corruption, but also to start rebuilding trust by doing things differently this time.
And I'm going to ask you in this last question I've got for you, how are we going to do that? Just tell me what needs to actually change, Neeshan, because what I'm worried about is the number of significant tenders we're going to see. We've seen the prices for the roads. I can't imagine what the electrical work and the water infrastructure is going to cost. Tenders need to come out for that, and that's what I'm worried about. How concerned are you about tenders? And when you say we must do it differently, tell me why before I say goodbye, or tell me how exactly before I say goodbye to you.
Well, it starts off with transparency. I think if we know what is going to be procured, at what cost, and what that procurement process will be, and who ultimately gets the tenders, and if all of that information is made publicly available between civil society, the media, all kinds of professional bodies, we would be able to scrutinize this and then begin to indicate whether this is on track or not. I think, secondly, where it is possible, I think government needs to consider joint civil society and government oversight teams. And lastly, I think that there are existing legislature oversight committees, the public accounts committees in the city as well as the provincial government. These, however, need to be capacitated with either additional skills from external entities as well as immediate access to information. They shouldn't be getting information 6 months down the line. They should be getting information real in live. And I think that is a starting point to actually exercise scrutiny and oversight over immediate expenditure. Going down, I think, is the quality of work that needs to be done. That, again, is an area of work that with professional bodies and civil society working with government, we can ensure that this is done in a way that people who deserve it actually benefit the most. And finally, is the kind of audits that must happen at the end of the process, both in terms of services delivered, as well as the entities who would have been contracted to do the work, whether we got value for money out of all of this. All of this is very doable. I think there are experiences from the World Cup that could be brought in, the kind of project management expertise. And there is huge expertise in civil society and in the private sector to assist government to ensure that this time it is done properly. And as we say in our statement, that we need to do this so that it's the people who benefit and not the bank accounts of a few, ultimately, that will see the biggest gains as has been done previously.
Yeah, trust is earned in all spheres as well, especially in the managing of public funds. Neeshan Balton, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for giving us the views of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, and not just the foundation concerned about this. Right in the beginning, when we started seeing the footage coming out of KwaZulu-Natal, there were already groups concerned about if and when money was going to be allocated, how was that actually going to be handled? But I appreciate the time of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation's Neeshan Balton.